What was the most rebellious thing you did as a kid? As a kid, I straight up lied to my dad's face about having a school project on the solar system. I even made up a deadline so we'd have plenty of time. But I just wanted to make something with him. Not sure why I lied. Unexpected wholesome. Hated my school's attendance policies, so I played the system. Came in 45 minutes late to school every single day because if you were late 5 days you got a 2-hour detention. But 45 minutes a day 5 days is 3 hours 45 minutes, so I was in school for almost 2 hours less. And on top of that I didn't actually miss class because the first 45 minutes of school was dedicated homeroom time. Therefore I could only be given detention. They changed the rule the following year to 3 lates. In 2nd grade I wasn't allowed to go out for recess because I didn't bring a coat. I decided to go home. I walked outside and made it home before the principal picked me up in my driveway. I lived 1.5 miles from my school. It took them 15 minutes to realize I was no longer sitting in the office. So in high school, the senior class was allowed to leave campus for lunch. My lunch was a different time than all my friends though. While they were in lunch, I was in English. So, one day we weren't doing much in class, so I asked if I could go to lunch with my friends. My teacher was awesome, said she didn't care and signed my hall pass. So my friends and I leave to get Sonic, and we pass my principal on the highway. When we get back, he's waiting for me with my mom in the office. Even though I had permission, I still got in trouble. But because I was a straight A student and never was in trouble before, all he did was take my fries. Literally years later I pull into Sonic, order my food, and hear a knock on my passenger window. I look over, and there's my high school principal, asking for my fries LMAO. Straight up baller. When I was 7, my friend's family, next door neighbors, were going to Chuck E. Cheese and he invited me and I just left without saying anything to my mom. She literally napped the whole time I was gone and did not notice. She was extremely pissed when I told her years later. 1st grade. Licked the scratch and sniff stickers on the bulletin board because of a dare. I got in big trouble with the nuns. The worst part was finding out a friend ratted me out. You expect the nuns to be scary, but a turncoat friend felt way worse. Rebellious friends only from there on out. When I was around 10 or so, my mom was yelling at me for something I had done. I don't remember what it was, but she was furious. I told her I needed to go pee. She didn't believe me, obviously, and kept going. In stark defiance, I stood there and peed myself with a straight face. She tried to remain angry but after a few seconds busted out laughing. In my family, playing sports was against the religion, Jehovah's Witnesses. So I forged a consent form, scheduled my own doctor appointments to get a form that said I was in good health to play, then joined lacrosse when I was 15. Proud of you for making your own destiny. When the original Xbox was huge I used to get grounded a lot. They would take the power cord. Turns out that my laptop power cord had the same attachment, so I used that when they weren't home or asleep. Worked like a charm. RIQ 1000. Okay, here's a long one. Grab some popcorn. I'm a guy, and I had a lady friend who bugged me all year long to go to the Pride Parade with her. I'm straight and she is bisexual. We had to take a train to roll into the city, but being 16 at the time, I pretty much had no money, just enough for exactly one fare. So I decided I was going to just sneak on in. But I was caught because security was on high alert due to the major event. I was fined almost $200 and told that if I went on the train, it would be a one-way ticket, because I was being formally blacklisted until the fine was paid off. Now for reference, my house and where the event was held was just about a full marathon away, possibly slightly more. Not wanting to let my friend down, I decided to go on the train and find a solution later. My description and profile was forwarded. Long blonde hair, black hooded jacket with white crosses, and we set off. I remember looking at the fine the whole time not knowing what to do. I had given some false information as I didn't have any identification. I still don't. And I gave the wrong date of birth and only used one of my 2 last names. So, I'm not sure if that holds water to some red flags. All day at this gay parade, I couldn't stop thinking what I was going to do. And then it occurred to me, I'm going to use a disguise. So right after it ends I pull her behind a sketchy looking business and we swap a bunch of clothes in complete daylight. I inverted the hooded jacket I had and tied it around my friend's waist. She gave me her tie-dye cape and I tied my hair back and tried smiling as much as I could. Going through security was scary, even seeing someone get arrested. I'd like to think that maybe it was busy enough to not even need disguises, but I wasn't going to risk a criminal trespassing charge. The ride back was interesting. Security, security, security. Her mom picks us up from the station and we abruptly start trading clothes back like something out of a movie. Good times. Oh, and that fine never went through. Absolute madman. My dad was a terrible tipper, so I would steal dollar bills from his wallet during the week, then leave them for the waiter when we dined out on Saturday nights. Chaotic good. From the age of 5 till at least 7 it was a battle for my parents to get me to bathe. I hated it. I'd climb from the bathroom window in my boxer shorts almost nightly to avoid it. The window was just big enough for me to slip out by time I stopped, and I would always climb down via a multi-tiered flat roofing on my neighbor's house. This was before the internet was huge, so playing with mud, climbing tree and coming home filthy was ordinary. But only one bath a fortnight didn't help my social life. I just ran through the house naked until one of my parents literally caught me and forced me into the bathroom. Snuck my dad's car out in the middle of the night for a joyride. I thought I got away with it until he confronted me the next day. Turns out he had been checking the odometer. Easy, just drive back home in reverse. My mom bought me a dirt bike when I was a teen. She said I could only drive it down the back roads, no more than a mile or so away. I took that B across state lines. Pretty stupid as a 16-year-old girl, with a crappy flip phone, a pocket knife, and just enough gas money. It was fun though. Didn't die. She must have known that was unenforceable. No way she doesn't think you went further. My cousin and I, when we were around 3 or 4, attempted to escape my grandma's backyard that had a roughly 5 or 6 feet picket style fence. The interior of the fence had braces, so it was pretty easy to climb from the inside. Anyway, my cousin has always been the adventurous one, and so he cleared it no problem. When I tried, however, I had second thoughts when I got to the top and looked down, and when I eventually tried to jump, I somehow got my shirt caught on the fence and screamed bloody murder for 5 minutes until a neighbor came out to investigate. Good times. Something like that happened to me as a kid, but instead of getting my shirt stuck I fell and got a rock in my hand. What I thought was the most rebellious thing? Probably going to school with a green mohawk. What was the most rebellious thing? Talked back to a math teacher every day until she took early retirement in November. I ran away from kindergarten. I know, this sounds weird for a kindergarten kid, but I really did plan it, and I even had a reason for it. Reason: I have only siblings 6+ years older than me. They sometimes got home from school early because a class was cancelled. I was pretty pissed that I never had the chance to have that experience. Plan. For background, I didn't live far away from the kindergarten. Really, it was just 2 houses down the street. We had our bags with our lunch and stuff with us in the large room we spend most of our time, but our coats were outside. Also, to go to the bathroom, you had to leave the big room. So that day I raised my hands to ask to go to the bathroom, and when it was okay, I also said something like I'll take out my bag and put it next to my jacket, so I won't forget it later again. I know this sounds strange for a kindergarten kid, but I swear to God it is true. No further questions asked, so I had my bag, grabbed my coat from outside, and off I went. When I came home, my mom was a bit puzzled, but I just said, with the happiest smile, "Oh, class was cancelled," and we were allowed to leave early and went to my room. It took about 15 minutes until one of the kindergarten teachers came over to our home, and my mom called me downstairs. Looking back now, I get that this was a really crappy thing to do, and the kindergarten teachers were probably worried sick, but dang, I was so proud my plan worked. I skipped school once as a senior, during a mandatory test period for sophomores, which meant that freshmen and upperclassmen were held in their first periods for 2 hours longer than normal, and my first period teacher even said if you are senior and you don't show up, I'll still count you as present. I smoked a bowl 2 weeks after that, but honestly my parents' biggest issue is that it's not legal in my state and they don't want me getting in legal trouble. They don't care about weed usage. It's hard to rebel against supportive parents when you're a fundamentally lawful good person. I was on probation for drugs, under the influence of a controlled substance, ecstasy, and weed, and possession of methadone. I finished my probation and became pregnant within 2 months later at 17. I turned out okay though I turned it all around. I graduated nursing school at 23 despite having 2 children by the time I was 19 and now I have a 3rd little girl and have been married for 8 years. The most impressive thing is that you got into nursing school despite a criminal record of substance abuse. They usually don't admit people with that history, regardless of whether or not they are different now. Ran away from home a time or 2. Didn't last long because I was an idiot kid though, spurred on by emotions rather than thinking things through. Same. I ran away to our next door neighbor's house. My mother was super smart. Packed a suitcase with all my toys in it and said, I respect your decision but you're never welcome on our side of the fence again. We'll miss you. You have never seen a 4-year-old cry and run so fast in their dang life. My father was extremely against reptiles and would actively hunt them. They had a habit of eating the local and beneficial wildlife. I always wanted to prove myself to him. So I went out and hunted one. Caught it in a net. When the time came to kill it though, I don't know. I just saw my fear in it. I couldn't do it. Instead I let it live. I began to befriend it and bonded quite a bit. I even trained it. When my father found out he disowned me, it was only when I killed the biggest of them did I earn his respect. He tried to change his mindset and it worked out for him. He gained quite a respect for the creatures and even adopted one himself. We are much happier on Burke now. This got me good until the last sentence. When I was around 11 I started stealing. Everything. Literally anything of value I could get my hands on I would take. I sold most of it with the help of a friend's older brother and he helped me get a garage to store the stuff before I sold it. By 15 I was breaking into warehouses and stealing TVs by the pallet. We made a crap ton of money, but when I finished school and went to uni it stopped there and then. Not my story, but one of my friends found a tent in the woods near my house. We were all fairly good kids, especially him, but I have no clue what went through his head. He tore the lining with a stick and went inside. Amongst someone's normal possessions were some lube, a vibrator, a set of fuzzy handcuffs, and a doctor's note about herpes medication. My friend, the absolute madlad, threw the vibrator on some train tracks and everyone assumed that that was the end of things. It wasn't until 6 or so months later, when my dad was on a training course with my school, when he told me about a guy who lives in a tent in the woods. He told me not to disturb him, as this guy believes that everyone is out to kill him. Suffice to say, I've kept out of the woods for a while now. LOL, these responses have me feeling like a thug. Fast forward 20 years and I have a mortgage and a white collar job. But stealing pumpkins and throwing them through parked car windshields was definitely one Halloween's adventure. We were for sure bad kids because things like driving drunkenly across neighbors' front yards and flower beds, getting to brawls, cops breaking up parties, stealing Christmas decorations and putting them on train tracks, etc. were just big city 90s kids things for us. Actually happened pretty recently, maybe a month ago. I'm 16 BTW. My mom's pretty lenient. This means she doesn't do too much to me at home. But whenever I go out and do literally anything she watches me like a hawk in case I'm buying H or breaking into houses. That's not a joke. Literally was her own unironic reasoning behind this. Please note that I at least think I'm a pretty casual person. I don't do drugs, and people commend me for my respect towards other people. There's no reason she should have suspected me for doing any of that crap. She has a tracker installed on my phone that I couldn't find and uninstalled to save my life. One night I'm over at a friend's house with some other guys and one of them has to leave. It's about 11:30, and 3 of my mom's main rules are: don't go anywhere past 10 o'clock, no crossing roads after dark, always respond to my calls, period. Well, I broke all 3 of those. All of my friends agreed to walk my friend home because he's sad about having to leave. I say that I have to stay back because of my tracker. and they tell me to just leave it. Me, being the person I am who already freaking hates my mom, decides that's a good idea. Rule 1. Don't go anywhere past 10 o'clock. Rule 2. No crossing roads after dark. Broke those two. We get back after like 25 minutes and we find my mom rolling into my friend's parking lot. She called my phone 57 times at borderline midnight. Rule 3. Always answer my phone. Broken. We hauled butt behind my friend's house, opened his already cracked open window, threw ourselves in and pretended to be asleep. We had a big butt fight because I didn't answer my phone and she agrees to take the tracker off and leave me alone. Heist of the fricking century. I won't say this is a lenient mother. I once said frick off to my physics teacher. I felt really great when I said it but kinda got scared afterwards. Now that I look back at it, he was actually being a dong and I'm glad I said it. Once had a very satisfying dream where I got into an entire argument with him with a lot of cursing and stuff. My brother and I decided to take matches to my birthday party and light candles on the cake. I don't know how it happened, but we set fire to dad's shirt, which was on the floor. I really read that as machetes instead of matches and was both concerned and confused. Well, I once stole my grandmother's car and a bottle of rum at the age of 15 to go hook up with a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old. Yeah, no, as an adult, I fear my own children because if I was any indicator of bad behavior I am absolutely fricked. I was a geeky quiet child so my rebellion was to pretend to go to bed on time but really read books under the covers with a flashlight. That is utterly despicable. Me and my friends stole a truck that someone left with the keys in it and we drove it around for a week before we dropped it back off in the same spot we took it from. I was 13. It was the summer before I was going to high school. I rearranged the letters on the junior high marquee sign to say IEP. Never got caught but it stayed like that for a couple of days. Now they have a plastic case covering with a key around the front of the sign. All thanks to me. When I was a baby, me and my cousin jumped butt naked out the window. My mom found us an hour later playing with a puppy 2 blocks away. I used to host a Minecraft server with over 200 active players on my dad's work PC he had at home because the thing ran fast. When the day came that I took down the server he was freaking out over the newly allocated RAM in his computer. The summer after my freshman year of high school, I was staying the night at my best friend's house. I'd said we were thinking about going to the drive-in movies and my mom didn't want me to because it was in a bad part of town. Well, her parents weren't home, so we left and met up with some friends. We didn't want to have to pay for all of us, so 2 other friends and I hid under blankets on the floor of the back seat. I don't even remember what movie we watched, but I remember having a lot of fun and eating way too much junk food. In 4th grade, we had to have our teacher sign a piece of paper every day for reading books and we had to turn it in to get a new one when it was full. I forged multiple signatures before realizing it was illegal and she didn't even realize that it wasn't her who signed it. I'm guessing she just didn't remember signing it so she just took it. When I was a kid my mom made up this rule, a rule that I couldn't do to concerts till I was 17. When I was 16 my 3 favorite bands at the time, Jimmy Eats World, Green Day, and Blink-182, were touring together. The show started at 8, so I arranged to spend the night at a friend's house on a Thursday night. Snuck out of my friend's house and went to that concert. I ended up meeting a few of the members of Jimmy after the show and got invited on their tour bus. Played Halo and got high with them. Best night ever for a 16-year-old. What a great story. Looking back, it might have been becoming an evangelical Christian. I didn't do it to rebel, but it was related to how I felt about my family and role in it. Thank goodness I left 7 years later, and my family was just like, yeah, that was a weird phase. We love you anyway despite my hysterical we're all going to heck moments. At age 12 picked fights with my dad when he was about to go berserk to take the beating and protect my younger sisters. I'm a girl, earned a full scholarship to a boarding school at 15 to get away from my fricked up parents. I never considered this that rebellious until I started realizing not that many people did it as teens. My friends and I would pander hobos into buying us cigarettes and alcohol in our teens. We would camp outside of gas stations or other hobo territories and ask them to buy us a couple packs of smokes and some booze. We told them to keep whatever change was left over. We did this so often that we started getting on a first name basis with some of our hobras and always made sure to include $10 for their troubles. You tend to form a strange but very personal bond when you spend the ages of 13-18 asking hobos to buy you crap from the gas station. Most people my age that I've told this to said they've never done that, never heard of it or had their older siblings buy it for them as teens. My friends and I are the older siblings, so we didn't have anyone to do that for us. I always thought that was a normal thing every teenager does, but many people have told me the opposite. I used to climb trees when I was younger. In fact, I loved climbing stuff that most kids wouldn't go near. My friends called Monkey Man. One time I climbed onto this neighbor's brand new car. My dad found out and gave me the ass whooping of my life. Didn't stop me from climbing though. Secretly feeding food I didn't like to our dog under the table. He loved liver night because I gave him every bite I could. I asked my parents and they told me a lot of stories. But I remember when I was 1.5 years. I was at daycare and my mom had given birth earlier that day, if you can call it that. I think it was around 0:53 my sister was born. But when she came to pick me up with my sister in her stroller with a pacifier in her mouth, I had just gotten rid of mine, so Wajan mom came up to me and was like, "Hey, this is your new sister." I looked at my newborn sister, then at my mom, then at my sister again. I simply said "Bapple" and took my sister's pacifier and put it into my mouth. I'm not very kind to my sister Mayo. I punched my brother first time I saw him. I think this is pretty normal type of stuff at that age. On vacation in Spain, the 4yo, me watered plant with a water gun until a lady came to me and said how well behaved I am, so I sprayed her in the face. Same vacation my mother hadn't had a look for 10 seconds on me, so I crapped 5 heaps around the pool. My parents were really overprotective because my sister got pregnant as a teenager and I always had an early curfew. I stayed out 8 hours past curfew one night. In my defense, I thought I was getting away with it. I had been at an event the day before that ended at midnight, and I was going to that same event. I thought my parents would assume it ended at the same time the second night, but we got out early. See, I went to a party. When I got home my parents were waiting for me. What I didn't know was that they had called about an hour after I left asking when it would be over and have been waiting for me ever since. I got grounded for 6 months. This was at a young age of 10 years. I had exploded a pressure bomb and the force of the explosion was about 25 or 50 pounds of dynamite. And all types of explosives other than fireworks are illegal in Finland. Tried haphazardly to rob a bank. Pointed a pellet gun at some innocent person, then got caught and finished high school in juvie jail. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.